the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to tell you about two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who I think are wonderful. The first one is certified divorce coach Janine Marie Powell. And Janine has been doing this for a long time. She understands the struggles and heartaches associated with divorce, both on a personal and professional level. She went through her own painful divorce several years ago and says that even though she had a really good attorney and a good therapist, navigating life after divorce as a single mother of two wasn't easy. Janine is so compassionate, so warm, a great listener, and she'll help you come up with a plan for your during and after divorce life. If you want to learn more, you can find Janine at sosdivorcecoach.com. I also want to tell you about a really good financial advisor named Amanda Campbell. Now, Amanda has been in the financial services industry since 2010, but it was a chance encounter that inspired her to specialize in helping empower divorcing women. Several years ago, a good friend of hers was going through a divorce and needed help making decisions in the divorce process. Should she keep the house? What should she ask for? How much did she need to live on? And Amanda wanted to help her girlfriend. So she studied, she learned, and then decided she wanted to do this all the time. I really trust Amanda. She's full of positive energy, great ideas, and has such a passion for this, and she's been very successful as a financial advisor. If you want to learn more, you can find Amanda on the WealthSpire Advisors website. You can also find her in the Trusted Professionals section of Divorced Girl Smiling. What is a guardian ad litem? That's what we're going to talk about today. When I was getting divorced, I had no idea what that meant. I had never heard the term. If you're listening to this and you've never heard it, I don't blame you. There would be no reason you would unless you're going through a divorce. And even in my divorce, we did not have a guardian ad litem, so I didn't really even have any experience with it. My guest has a lot of experience and knows exactly what a guardian ad litem is because she is one. My guest is Colleen Breams, divorce attorney and guardian ad litem for Bierman. And hi, Colleen.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
So, Colleen, don't you feel like when a guardian ad litem comes up, people don't know what it is? Why would you know?
Yeah, I think that when most people get appointed a guardian ad litem, that's the same time they learn what a guardian ad litem is. Um,
Absolutely. Okay, so tell us what a guardian ad litem is.
yeah, so a guardian ad litem is otherwise known as a GAL. Those terms are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. And really, what that is a person who's an attorney appointed by the court under the relevant statute to investigate and report on the circumstances affecting the minor child or children in a case. Really, what the judge considers me when I'm appointed as a GAL is the eyes and ears of the court. And what I like to say to families is because the judge can't get off the bench and get to know each individual family on his or her court call, I get the pleasure of doing that and helping the judge. So, with that, I'm tasked with conducting a thorough investigation as to all issues related to co parenting and the child or children in question. And while I'm not a decision maker, I can make recommendations to the court based on what I believe to be in children's best interests. And I also work to help to facilitate settlements and to try to find some harmony and points of agreement between the co parents. Because at the end of the day, my interest is the children and the children only. And I think that the children win when the parents can get together and come to some agreements. However, that's not always the case. And then that's where my recommendations are important to the court.
Okay, so before we continue this conversation, I want to make it clear that Colleen is a divorce attorney that you can hire for your divorce if you don't need a GAL, but she also is a licensed GAL who is sometimes appointed by the court to step in and help kids in a divorce situation. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So when
Okay.
I'm not
Well, I was also going to say, you know how people think that sometimes a child or children have a lawyer? Is that what a guardian ad litem is? You're like the children's lawyer, you're advocating for the kids.
So, a guardian ad litem is a specific role. There are a few roles that someone could be appointed to when it comes to children in a case, and a guardian ad litem is one of them. It's not the same as to say you're the attorney for the children because there's no duty of confidentiality when you're a guardian ad litem. And also, you don't have the requirement to advocate for whatever it is the children are asking for. And that's a good thing because as a guardian ad litem, I may have a really young child who tells me, I want to live with this parent. And I'll ask why. And then the child will say, well, because there's no bedtime and no rules at that parent's house, and I get to eat candy for dinner. So then I could say, okay, I know that's what the child wants. The child articulated that clearly, but that may be contrary to what I believe and what I see to be in a child's best interest. So a little bit of a difference there.
Okay. So, Colleen, tell me in what kinds of cases is a guardian ad litem brought into?
Well, I would say most often they are high conflict cases where these parents cannot agree on what day of the week is. Not always, but usually people are not coming to me when things are going great. But at a minimum, people generally come to me when the court appoints me after mediation has failed. At least in Cook County, there's a requirement for families who have minor children to engage in court ordered mediation to try to resolve the co parenting issues before those issues are litigated. And if that mediation process fails in full or in parts, and there are some remaining issues that need to be teased out as it relates to co parenting, that's where I come into play. So I'm generally and hopefully meeting people early stages of the case where emotions are pretty high and they can't agree on, say, a parenting time schedule or how to make major decisions for their child or children.
Okay, but here's the thing. I went through a divorce and we had those kinds of conflicts. We went to mediation. We weren't able to come up with agreements, but we didn't get a GAL. We just, are you saying that if time would have gone by, more time, and we couldn't, because we ended up negotiating with our attorneys. That's how I got divorced, okay? But are you telling me that if those negotiations would have been going on and on and on, then a GAL probably would have been appointed?
That's right. I think that's generally what you can expect in most cases. Not all. There are special circumstances where a case can go all the way to a custody or divorce trial without a GAL, but I would say that's rare, especially in Cook County, because the judge wants to have the court's eyes and ears to give the most information possible to make informed decisions as it relates to the children.
Let's move on to the role of the GAL, what specifically they do. So they interview both the parents and the children, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do they, and then they conduct home visits possibly?
Yeah, so I would say that a guardian ad litem should conduct a home visit. Doesn't always happen. That's within the discretion of a guardian ad litem. But for me personally, I always like to meet the child or children within the home that they primarily reside because that's their home base, that's their comfort level. And oftentimes they want to show me, their family pet, their room, their toys, things that they're interested in that may be more comfortable and reassuring to them than just coming into my office and meeting me in the boardroom, although I have had some kids that asked to do that.
Okay. Now, it also says here in this article you wrote about GALs that You consult with therapists, doctors, other relevant professionals, even DCFS. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So, what you're talking about there is what I call a list of collaterals. And those are people that I ask for the parents to give me after I've had an opportunity to interview the parents initially and the child or children. So, those collaterals are third parties and they can be professionals, but also family, friends, neighbors, people who can give me particular and unique insight as to how a child is doing. So if the child has a therapist, I'm going to want to talk to that therapist because there's a reason why that child needs a therapist in the first place, and I want to take that into account when making recommendations. Same with doctors. If the parents are disagreeing about, say, a course of treatment for a child or how to make choices for a child as it relates to medical decisions, I'm going to want to talk to that doctor. I'm going to want to know which parent is the one that's bringing the child to the visits, which parent is the one that's calling the doctor after hours when there's an emergency? Which one knows the child's prescriptions and allergies? That's very important. With school, I definitely want to talk to a school if a child is school age, because generally a school sees children for the majority of their weekday and can give me a really neutral, unbiased sense of how the children are doing and also involvement and interaction by the parents with the school. Um, Not always, but sometimes I have cases that have DCFS components, otherwise known as the Department of Child and Family Services. And where DCFS is involved, I'm going to want to talk to that investigator and get the investigative report where needed to get a sense of what exactly is going on. Um, DCFS often comes in when there are allegations of child abuse or neglect. So it's very important that I talk to them to make sure I have my facts straight. And those are just some professionals that I could be speaking with. Every case is different and may have a different set of professionals.
Okay, do you think that tell me if this is accurate. So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, "Oh, okay, what's the point of the GAL?" I would say from everything you just told me, the point of the GAL is to go in and really get to know the family and then kind of give the judge a synopsis of everything going on along with your recommendations about what is best for the child.
That's exactly right. So as a GAL, the first thing I try to do is see if I can reach an agreement between the parties. Oftentimes, after my initial investigation, I'll ask for a settlement conference, generally with the parties and their attorneys, if possible, to talk through what's actually at issue and see if we can reach any points of agreements. If we can't, then I'll be making what are called recommendations. Basically, here are the issues that the two of you cannot agree on, and here's what I think should happen and why. If that doesn't resolve the case, then I deliver that to the court. The court is the final decision maker. I'm not a decision maker at all, but the court does give a guardian ad litem's input lots of weight because they're the boots on the ground, so to speak.
But you're also kind of acting as a mediator if you have this settlement conference and you're gonna try to get these parents to come up with a good plan based on everything you learned talking to all these professionals and talking to the kids.
Yeah, and I want to be really clear here. When I'm a guardian ad litem, I am not also a mediator. That's a discrete and separate designation, and also something I can be appointed by the court to do. But generally, that's separate. But the great thing here is I can use my mediation skills to try to help a family negotiate a settlement that works well for everyone. It's very similar to what you described, Jackie, where you were able to reach an agreement in your case with the attorneys having settlement negotiations. So when I'm having a settlement conference like that, it's very much the same way, where I'm not acting as a mediator, but I'm a disinterested, neutral third party that's able to report on what it is I'm seeing objectively and to help the family ideally reach an agreement. If they can't, I will deliver my recommendations to the courts, and oftentimes that could be in the form of a written report that goes into evidence already admitted, and that could be used at trial or hearing. If the case does go to trial or hearing, I would also be called as a witness. basically as the court's expert to provide testimony about what my recommendations are and why, and also details of my investigation. So that's a very important difference for why I'm not an attorney for a child. There's a different role where I would be litigating instead of the witness, but this is not that.
Okay, we are so far over the break, but I do have a question, and we're going to get to it after the break. You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. My guest today is Colleen Breams, divorce attorney and partner with Bierman. Colleen is also a guardian ad litem, and Colleen and I are talking about guardian ad litems and answering all the questions you might have and addressing all of your concerns. After the break, I'm going to ask my question, which is a GAL ever called in through a mediator? That's my first question. And then I want to get into how parents and children might feel about the GAL. I would get really paranoid and think, oh my gosh, am I under a lot of scrutiny here? What have I done wrong? Kind of attitude. So we're going to get to that in a minute. We'll be right back. I want to tell you about two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who I absolutely think are wonderful. The first one is therapist Jason Price, who is the co-founder of his very large practice, Affiliates in Counseling. Affiliates in Counseling has offices in Chicago and the suburbs. They have about 50 therapists, yes, 50, and each of them have different niches. And a lot of them specialize in during and after divorce for individuals, families, and kids and young adults. I've known Jason for about 15 years. He's the co-founder. He's an LMFT himself, a wonderful therapist, and I really trust the practice. If you want to learn more, you can find them at affiliatesincounseling.com. I also want to tell you about a really good divorce attorney in North Carolina. Her name is Teresa Vieira, and the name of her firm is Modern Legal. She has a few attorneys working with her, and I have to say, Teresa is an amazing woman. She was just a young child, grew up in a family of domestic violence, and helped her mom get out of a toxic situation. It is that history that gave her hope and inspiration to become who she is today. She's been a family law attorney for several years. She's an arbitrator, certified mediator, and the founder of Modern Legal. Really trust Teresa. She's so passionate. She's such a good lawyer. If you want to learn more, you can find all of the attorneys and Teresa at modernlegalnc.com. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today we're talking about guardian ad litems. My guest is a guardian ad litem. She's also a divorce attorney and a partner with Bierman. Her name is Colleen Breams. Colleen, what I was asking before the break is, let's say people go to mediation. Is a guardian ad litem ever consulted for that, or is this solely for litigation?
So there are times where people may want a guardian ad litem as they're going into the mediation process. And I've actually even had it where I've been appointed by a judge before mediation is attempted. Every case is a little bit different, but that's a little bit out of order, a little bit out of the norm there. Parties can have me appointed by agreements, but the court would need to be the final say as to who the court's expert is going to be. A mediator does not have the power to appoint a guardian ad litem. So it's not common for a mediator to call me up and say, "Hey, you're the guardian ad litem, come into the mediation session." Generally, that needs to go to the court. That there needs to be something filed in the court in order for a guardian ad litem to be involved.
Because if you think about it, it does sound kind of like a good idea. Like the guardian ad litem could really help. That said, you can't go into a school and start talking to the children's teachers and the therapists without a court order. They're not really going to talk to you anyway.
Right. And also, you want to be sure that the judge knows that there's a court's expert out there and that the judge has approved of who that is. Some judges don't like it when attorneys come into a case and say, Judge, we've agreed that our guardian ad litem should be this person, when the judge may have someone else in mind. So you really have to keep at the forefront that this is the judge's decision ultimately.
Let's move on to paranoia, which I confess if my case would have gone further and they said, okay, you guys can't agree on your parenting schedule, so we're calling in a guardian ad litem. I would feel very paranoid, like I'm walking on eggshells, I'm under a microscope. Tell people why they shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah, I think that what you're describing there is super relatable because here's some stranger that you've never met before that has a lot of weight in the court where lies a lot of your stress, I'm sure. What I would say is a guardian ad litem is not out to get you. A guardian ad litem wants to help the family. And I would say the best way to be at ease with a guardian ad litem is be yourself, be honest, be forthcoming. Take on the role of someone who's trying to problem solve instead of attack and dig at your ex, and really view your co parent as a partner. Things may not have gone well in your romantic relationship, but you're always going to have a relationship for so long as you share children. And I think presenting yourself that way to a guardian ad litem is extremely helpful. And at the end of the day, the guardian ad litem is there to help and make sure that your children are okay, which is something that pretty much all parents can agree is a good thing.
Colleen, is it hard to stay unbiased? Like when you're acting as a guardian ad litem, isn't it hard not to take sides? Like you're really acting as a neutral, right?
Well, so when you come in, you're supposed to view it with completely neutral eyes. However, ultimately, you're going to have to be taking a position. You're going to have to be making certain recommendations to the court on some questions that are completely binary. Like, should this child be able to relocate to Texas? Yes or no? One parent wants yes, the other parent wants no. It's very rare that there's going to be a middle ground with that. So, you're going to be taking a position based on what's in the best interest of children. Sometimes there are questions that are not so binary, so you can find some middle grounds, but you're not meant to just be always right down the middle, splitting the
I
baby
see.
things in half.
Yeah, so I would think it would be very nerve-wracking for a lot of people, very upsetting because they know you're going to make a decision one way or the other and it might not go their way.
Well, what I would assure those people is, again, remember, a guardian ad litem is not the decision maker. The guardian ad litem could make recommendations to the court and could fully explain why those recommendations are what they are and what they're based on. And the judge could absolutely say, that's nice, but I'm going to order X, Y, and Z instead. So the guardian ad litem carries a lot of weight, but it's not the end all be all, the judges.
And the guardian ad litem is really looking out for the kids. So really you're the kids are your biggest concern. And so what parents need to know is don't take it personally. It's not that the guardian ad litem liked your husband better than you, or your wife better than you. The guardian ad litem is doing what's best for the child. Is that accurate?
Right.
Okay, let's move on to the kids. What are they thinking with a guardian ad litem? Are they like, what is this person doing in my life? Maybe they don't want to be disloyal to their parents, so they might not tell you an accurate version of what's going on. Tell me about those experiences.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, every single child is different, and a lot has to do with the child's age and level of maturity. Now, if I'm coming in as a guardian ad litem for a much younger child, that child may not have that anxiety and may just view me as someone who's there to play with them and to get to know them. And I'm introduced as a friend of both of their parents. So there you see a lot less anxiety usually. And then when a child is a bit older, old enough to have observed some fighting, to know that their parents are getting divorced, to know that there's a judge and there's a case, they may have a lot more questions about who I am. And I try to assure them that just like mom has a lawyer and dad has a lawyer, I'm here only for them. And I'm here to get to know them and to help their parents make some good decisions for them. And I always like to assure those older kids not to be worried because they have a voice, but not a choice. And I think that's helpful. They know that what they say to me really matters and that I take it to heart. But at the end of the day, they don't have the pressure of deciding, I want to live with this parent or not that parent. Instead, they know that that's something for the adults to decide and that the adults are going to be looking out for them.
I actually love that because you're taking the pressure off the child who doesn't want to choose, and you're basically interviewing them and making the choice for them. Well, you're not making the choice, but you might make recommendations. And I have to bet that a judge would take a lot of recommendations from a GAL seriously because they know, I mean, and especially you, Colleen. Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, of course, they're going to take your recommendations, or at least some of them, because they don't even know anything. They're relying on the GAL for information.
That's right. And that's why guardian ad litems are so important.
Wow. Well, Colleen, I just love this conversation. I think it's so important. And if you had to say one thing in closing to parents who have been assigned a GAL and they're worried about it, what would you tell them?
I would say it's important to meet with your attorneys if you have one and talk about your concerns. Come up with a game plan for how you can present to your guardian ad litem in the best light. And then when you are meeting with your guardian ad litem, be yourself, be truthful, be forthright, and also be really focused on problem solving instead of throwing your ex under the bus, because that matters a lot. At the end of the day, this is still a partnership. You're still going to be working with your co parents and a guardian ad litem wants to see that.
Thank you so much, Colleen. I really appreciate your time being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jackie. Always a pleasure.
And if you want to learn more about Colleen, or have a consultation with her, you can find her at biermanlaw.com. And Bierman has two N's. You can also find Colleen in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. And you can also go to Divorced Girl Smiling, which is divorcedgirlsmiling.com, to listen to more podcasts, read articles, and find other trusted, vetted divorce professionals, everything from therapists, financial advisors, mediators, and more, and divorce coaches. So, thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.